What's up guys, Aaron Miles here now with On Tilt Gaming. I wanted to, as quickly and efficiently as I can, go over with you the whole of Vingolf 3 since I haven't gotten to cover things since the rulers came out, which I will also revisit now that we have the entire set spoiled. This video may end up running long as I value giving you a true and thorough analysis, and it's 2017 and you can skip around to certain cards if you would like. I'm going to try to put timestamps in the bottom of the video for any card that I spend more than a minute on, because those are the ones where you really want the analysis. Anything less than that, I'm just going to be a little too quick for you to really care. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can feel free to message me on Facebook. I'm Aaron Miles. But we're not going to waste a lot of time on the intro, as there is a lot to cover, so here we go with my analysis of Vingolf 3 Ruler All-Stars. Alright, just so you guys know from the get-go, I'm not going to be reading the cards. I understand that they are very difficult to read, given the full art nature of the spoilers, but if you just go on to Forceful TCG database and you follow along with me, I'm sure we'll all have a good time. That way I don't have to take a lot of unnecessary time reading the cards. So first off is Arla, the Lightwing, and this card is very powerful in my mind, and puts Celestial Wing Seraph back into the meta, which is a card that we haven't seen since, I believe, Collinsville last year, before everybody figured out that Huang Long was one of the better decks post Grimm rotation. So this Arla has 4 relevant abilities. The most notable, they're all actually very notable, however the barrier to resonators with flying is extremely relevant. Once you get 2 of them out, then your Arlas get barrier as well, because it is just other J resonators. But if you flicker a Celestial Wing with Lumia, then you can get out your second Arla. I think Lumia Angels is, as far as I know, not a secret deck. I think anybody going to Atlanta has put in some testing with that and has thought about it to some degree. I think it's going to be a very powerful deck. I think it is the future of Lumia. It's more aggressive than the current Hook version. It has more threats, it has more versatility, it has everything that Lumia is looking for. And the ability to flicker Arla as well as flicker your Lumia, or not your Lumia, your Celestial Wing, really gives you a lot more options. Lucifer's probably going to be in the deck, but I don't think he's going to be as relevant, and before you ask now, don't try to give your Lucifer lifelink. There's no viable Moon Mana way to do that. Don't do it. Just don't. You can play Lucifer, just don't try to give him lifelink, but I think mostly you're going to be going for this Arla. Excuse me. But as I was saying, she has relevant tap abilities, my favorite being the 1 white mana to destroy target addition or Regalia, because you really didn't want to play Gust in Lumia before. It feels pretty bad, and now having access to destroying additioners and Regalia without having to play Gust is very strong for the deck. And alright, so up next we have Arthur, Paladin, King of the Round Table. I don't see you ever picking a race other than Knight of the Round Table with this card. If you wanted to pick Elves or something, there are other cards to buff that, but obviously if you pick Round Table, he himself says he becomes an 11/11 because he doesn't say other J resonators, but probably a pretty useless card unless Knights of the Round Table really needed like a 4-drop to fill out the curve. I don't have a lot of experience with the deck, so I couldn't personally tell you, but I'm pretty sure this isn't what they were looking for. Then we go on to Siegfried. Siegfried has a very obvious place in the meta in Gwyber Turbo, but the question is 3 mana too much to pay for a card? The answer is very likely no. Many people have pointed out that he gets to untap your ruler as well, because he does say all dragons you control. However, at the moment, untapping your ruler is completely useless with him. Maybe we'll get a dragon ruler in L3 that is not useless with him, but at the moment it's like you can call a stone and then do judgment with your ruler. However, all of the dragon rulers in the game, Wanderer or otherwise, currently cost 5 mana, so you would have to call to an 8th stone, play Siegfried, untap your ruler to still have the 5 mana, and then you could flip your dragon ruler. But overall, pretty much a Gwyber Turbo card, which is fine. From my understanding, this card is very good in Gwyber Turbo. It's a 13/13 flyer, but we'll see how it goes. It's a little bit win more, but sometimes you need that in the mirror to kind of get an edge over your opponent, especially when you have a 13/13 flyer than when they don't. But I think it's going to make Bear Magic a more relevant card in the mirror, and that's about it. Because, oh, actually, Bear Magic doesn't get rid of races, so if I like attack with a Gwyber and you block with this, and then I like Bear Magic or Gwyber, he's still a 13/13 because Gwyber is still a dragon. But you know, you can just Bear Magic him. Faria. I mean, she prevents all damage while battling, which is kind of nice. The cancel target spell or ability, not very good. 2 mana to do it, not good. Barrier in this game is something that it's a new mechanic, it's something they're still playing around with. They're very hesitant to give cards barrier from all things, Arla being one of the exceptions, giving barrier from everything. So I think they should have given this card like 1 mana barrier spells and abilities, something along those lines. Obviously, with its current form, pretty unplayable. Gloria's Castletown is a reprint, still unplayable. Grimm, the Legendary King of Fairy Tales. This card's interesting. I think it's very useless outside of Wanderer with the original Grimm. Obviously, the second half of his effect implores you to play Millium with him, which does have the effect to play Fairy Tale Resonators for mono white stones. However, I don't think your Millium Fairy Tale deck was really hurting for a card that you could play on your mono white stones that wasn't a Fairy Tale that requires you to stick a 3-drop first. It doesn't do enough in New Frontiers. I'm hesitant to see if it does enough in Wanderer. I seriously doubt it. Sure, it gives Grimm the ability to discard any Resonator to search any Resonator, but I can't think of any Resonator that Grimm really wanted to play that they're throwing this card in to be able to play. So the White J ruler, this is the one that I had originally picked as the best ruler from the set before we got the rest of Vingolf. Honestly, I don't think this synergizes with any Vingolf cards very well, however I do still think it is an extremely powerful ruler, and probably still the best one in Vingolf. None of the Vingolf rulers ended up synergizing very well with any of the cards that ended up coming out. So then we have Night Lord of Godspeed. Pretty unplayable. He's 1,000,000 with a terrible ability. Light Wizard, I think the Wizards are bad. I'm gonna come out and say it, I don't think the Wizards are good. Ramping into Chance is mostly irrelevant. All of them die to Tama. All of them die to Flame King Shout, Dark Alice ability. Every board wipe in the game, the Wizards all die to it. And then their secondary abilities are all useless. All of them. 100% useless. Gaining 200 life off of a Light Chant, are you kidding me? It's unplayable. Yeah. Produce white, spend this will only to play Chance. That's garbage. There's no chant you care about ramping into. I think the red one's the best one, but for the most part I think they're all bad. Lumia Saint of Creation, this card's also bad. It's a 2 mana 4/7. If it dies, you can't play your cards, which is pretty bad. I mean, obviously people talked about Wanderer, old Lumia. Well, you get to play those cards, but you're not gonna survive playing old Lumia and Wanderer. The format's too fast. This card's not good. Manifestation of Power. This card's not... I think this is a reprint. Like 90% sure this is a reprint. Also, a card that is not played. This card's not played. This card's interesting. It's a Gretel for mono white stones. It has to be a non-special white magic stone. And then it just Gretels it, so... Obviously a good card for Millium Fairy Tales. He's not a fairy tale himself, but it doesn't matter because he costs white mana. So, still, once again, one of those things that's like nice in the deck, but I don't think it makes it any better than it previously was, and it was previously unplayable, so it does not matter. Final word, target blocking Resonator gets +1,000/+1,000, totally irrelevant. Combat tricks, in order to be relevant, have to meet a couple of criteria. They have to either have Remnant, give your Resonator barrier, or do something else. At the moment, I don't believe there's a combat trick that gives your Resonator barrier, and the reason that that's relevant is because you need something to protect you from just getting bear magicked after your combat trick resolves, and then obviously, like, if they bear magic in response to your combat trick, that also gives it barrier. For example, if this card said, target blocking Resonator gets +1,000/1,000 and barrier, then I play this, you respond with bear magic resolves, then I get barrier and +1,000/1,000, so I'm a 14/14 bear with barrier. And if they wait for this to resolve, then obviously I have barrier and I cannot be bear magicked. Rapid Growth is pretty good because it has Remnant, bear magic, another combat trick has Remnant, and then combat tricks that do something else, for example, Feat Sing the Resonator with the Inheritance gets you a monocle. This card doesn't do one of those 3 things, unplayable garbage. Zero's Magic Light, good card, but a little weird that they reprinted it in a Lapis Cluster set when it's already printed in Lapis Cluster, but on to the next card. Alright, so on to the red cards, we have Bahamut. This card's okay. I think the triple red incarnation instead of double red really takes him off the table as a playable card, as he's good, but he is not, sacrifice 3 creatures good. And, like, yeah, you could make the argument, oh, Ruck Egg, but, like, unless I'm sacrificing 3 Ruck Eggs, which I probably don't even want to do for this card, he's not a 12/12. If you're gonna be a flyer, you gotta be a 12/12. That's just how the world works. Then we have Barbatos. This card's pretty bad as well. Like, sorry. 100 defense is, way too small. Sure, like, it taps everything down, but Tama does not say tap, tribute, destroy target, and deal 200 damage to a resonator. She just says tribute, so resting all other J resonators is pretty irrelevant. Barust. This card's, like, interesting, and I originally misread it to think it said that this card gains -2/-2 for each magic stone in your graveyard, as opposed to +2/+2 for each magic stone in all graveyards. However, I don't think he's going to get very big. And, like, his first ability is pretty much irrelevant. Deal 500 damage to a resonator. Banish 2 magic stones, destroy target magic stones. Pretty relevant, but I think it's a bit too costly. I don't really see you getting ahead on mana out of your opponent enough to, like, use that ability effectively. I just don't think he's that good. And he dies to Tama. Blood Boil. Burn to Cinders. Cain, Treacherous Killer. I like this card, but I don't think he's very good. I think for your 1-drop red card, you want to, like, be dealing damage to creatures, or you want to be dealing damage to your opponent in increments bigger than 200. But I do like the card, which doesn't mean a whole lot. He doesn't die to Tama. Also, I don't want you guys to think that, like, dying to Tama is, like, a baseline for a card being good or bad. These cards that die to Tama are not bad because they die to Tama, they're bad because they're bad cards. This goes for all of the wizards, that goes for the 10/1. It's just the fact that if you do die to Tama, it's an extra, like, check mark in the unplayable card box, because it also means you die to Dark Alice God's Art, which is, even if Dark Alice is not the main ruler for stealth, it's usually in the sideboard somewhere. Go on to Certo, it's a reprint. Demonflame's a reprint. Fire Wizard. Card is bad, but card is probably the best of the wizards, because fire chants are, they usually cost 1 mana, so, like, you could play this card turn 1, and then still thunder your opponent's turn 1 play. And the fact that it deals the extra 100 damage allows you to kill Melgis with Lightning Strike, Demon Flame, Thunder as well, so the best wizard, probably still not a very good card. But if any of them would be playable, I would expect it to be this one. Guardian Fire Magic Stones. I went over the rulers. Nothing came out that made this guy any better. But I thought the rulers were gonna have to wait for L3 regardless, especially since I believe in my old video I touched on this with the Black-Red Gil Lapis that requires cards to be exiled, so we'll see. But at the moment, nothing special. I believe this was also a reprint. Swiftness, players cannot gain life. It's a worse Lancelot, and the last time I played an aggro deck in Lapis Cluster format, I didn't even play Lancelot, because I didn't think he was a good card. I was playing Charlotte aggro, I didn't think he fit into the deck very well because there were no good activators for him. So, a worse Lancelot is definitely not something I'll be playing. Salamander, this card costs too much. This would be a good, well, this would be a broken 2-drop. I think at a 3-drop this card would be fair for its 6/6, you know, attack and defense, but the fact of the matter is at 4 mana it's entirely too expensive. This guy's pretty bad. People were telling me, like, oh, yeah, you know, you attack with your elf and then they block, and then your elf and their thing dies, and, like, they just don't block the elf. It's a fucking 1/1. Doesn't matter. However, this card does become interesting if you play Gleipnir, but I'm hard-pressed to find what deck you're playing Gleipnir, this guy, and, like, elf tokens to make it worth it, because I don't want to be throwing away real creatures to this, you know? I want to be throwing away, like, elf tokens. So, like, if you play a Gleipnir version of Gwyber, which is an adaptation that we could see come out, then I think this card could be played, but probably not. And then Sylvia, I like this card. I think this card's pretty good for a 3 mana, 8/7 flying swiftness if you're playing Sylvia, but if you're playing red-green aggro, I think you're either playing Blazer, Sylvia, or Melgis. The problem is that, like, Blazer and Sylvia aren't interchangeable, because to be Sylvia, you want to play 10 red stones, but to be Blazer, you want to play 10 green stones. because the mana fixing's opposite. And then if you're playing Melgis, doesn't matter. But if you were playing like Melgis as your main, and then like Sylvia in the side, or like Sylvia in the main, and then like Melgis in the side, I could see something like this, but I think the Awakening's pretty neat. I like, you know, 4 mana, get an 8/7 and a 5/5 that both have flying, but I think she really needs the swiftness to be good, and I just don't think Sylvia is the way you want to be going with your aggro deck, but we'll see. I've been wrong before. And so next up we have the blue cards. First off, Alice Dimensional Traveler. As many people may not realize, you do still have to pay the mana cost of this card to pull it out of your deck if you are searching, and therefore it is not a very good card. You don't want to pay 3 mana for a 5/5 even if it isn't coming out of your hand, especially one that doesn't have anything that it does on field or entry. Bear Magic, good reprint. Charm of the Princess, mediocre reprint. Chronos, the God of Time, this is a really bad card. You don't want to pay 4 mana for this. There's no like easy way to cheat it out despite its 0 attack points, and it dies to pretty much every removal card in the game. Not so much the damage based ones, but things like Unseen Pressure. Dance of Inspiration, this card's bad. I don't even know if this is a reprint. I don't think it is, but it's not good. Blue Dragon's still really bad. Kaguya, I think this card's really good. You put this in like your Wyber deck. It doesn't die to Tama, which is actually big here because this is a card that does more the more it stays on the field. And it basically puts out a bunch of 1/1 rabbits that are blue, makes your Atom Brawlers a bit better, gives you access to things like Sprint. Sure, it's 2 mana, it's a little bit much, it dies to most removal, but I'm sure that you can look past that in pretty much most matchups. Anything like Lumia or the Mirror of Gwyber Turbo, you're going to start finding use out of this card. I mean, it does die to Atom Brawley off a red creature, but for the most part I think it's a pretty solid card. Not a great card, but a good card. This card's unplayable piece of garbage. This is a good reprint. This is another good unnecessary reprint because it's Lapis Cluster. This card is awful. Sure, it's got Quick Cast, and it like buffs all your guys for your Water Stones, but generally you're not base blue. I still don't think I've seen a deck that's base blue. And then if your ruler is Xion, she gets Barrier Resonator, so she can't die to Melter. And then the problem though is that if you're playing Xion and then you're trying to rack up your Water Stones, you're probably playing Xion Stone, which is not a Water Stone. Therefore it's like a controversy of abilities and like what you want to be doing versus what you're actually doing. Xion wants you to be playing Xion Stone, she wants you to be playing Water Stones. You see where the problems come in? Yeah, sorry. Tomo goes in. Merciful Aqua Tin Swords. Pretty bad card. Yeah, the Awakening twice is not a misprint. It means that you can awaken it 2 separate times. But returning Resonators to the hand is not really super relevant. Sure, it kind of deals with Elvish Priest, but that's really it, and I don't really want to be paying 3 mana for a 5/6 to bounce your Elvish Priest when I could just play Fight Priscia. Triton, I've heard this card's good. I don't like this card. I think it's a worse Fight Priscia. Fight Priscia has a lot more versatility to her, and then you play her on the backside and she does what this guy does but better. This card is like okay in the Gwyber deck because you can like take their guy and like Guinevere it, but I don't think it's good, especially not for 2 mana. If it was 1 mana, he'd be insane. I will say that. I think if he was 1 mana, he'd be very good, but not for 2 mana, and not for 2 blue. And then Valentina, Maid of the Ocean. This card sucks. It's 6 fucking mana, and then it's 5 mana if you're playing Valentina. And then like discard a card, return a Resonator to its owner's hand, irrelevant. Discard 3 cards, gain control of a guy. It's just not good. Water Wizard, once again, the wizards are bad. There's no blue spells you really care about ramping into unless you're like Soul, but I could almost see it in Soul. You do get the ability to scry when you play a blue spell, and Soul has a lot of dual colored spells, but it's probably the second best wizard, only because it is in color of an archetype that wants to be ramping into spells, but I still don't think it's good. It doesn't make Soul like better, because Soul, the problem with Soul is that it's hard to get off your combo, and like playing guys that ramp into spells doesn't help that. The problem isn't getting to the mana to be able to play your spells, the problem is actually resolving them. Like if this guy said, produce a blue mana spend this only to play a chant, that chant can't be countered, then we're in business, but it doesn't say that, so we're not in business. So we're moving on to the green cards now. We're going to start with Count Artagonon, who has a Mikage ability for 1 green mana, except he also makes the Resonator that he deals damage to lose flying, only when done by this ability, of course. Combat damage does not force something to lose flying, as relevant as that is or isn't. But I do like that ability from him. I like the fact that he is a Mikage. I think this is going to see some form of weird fringe playability. Maybe we have to wait for something from L3. But I do like the card as a whole. I think it's got some good things going for it. It is a little understated, but it's got a pretty good ability. Then we've got Frigg. This card, I liked this card at first. It does seem to have its uses in Lumia, but at the end of the day it's just like another big threat that your opponent kind of has to counter. Sure, it's more in color than Captain Hook is, but like Captain Hook actually ends the game. This actually doesn't do a whole lot if you don't already have like a Seal in your graveyard, or like a Captain Hook or a Melfi in your graveyard. Overall, I just don't think it does enough, and it's an 8/8, so it is a lot easier to kill than Captain Hook is, for when you go for the attack to be able to flicker with Lumia. Might see play as like a one-of, might see play as a sideboard card. I could see this as like a sideboard card against control for Lumia, but overall I think it's not as good as everyone's making it out to be. Guardian and Wind Magic Stones. I still think someone's going to break this guy, but we shall see. Heavenly Gust is a good reprint. Helsing Hunter of Vampires. If I remember, I actually have to read this guy. I don't think he was very good though. Yeah, no, he like exiles a darkness creature, meaning like Abdul, but Abdul cancels his ability, so it doesn't matter. So, you know. We have Little Red Fairy Tale of Aeor. I don't like this card as much as I like one of the other cards in this set. I don't think you ever actually get to play this as a 4/4 with Swiftness, unless you're playing Blazer, obviously, but if I'm playing Red-Green aggro, Blazer's really not the route I want to be going, especially if I'm going to be playing, because she's really only good if you have the Mono Greenstone, and I don't want to play Mono Greenstones, is basically what it boils down to. I think there are other ways to build Red-Green aggro where you don't play Mono Greenstones. I don't think this card is worth the slot for Mono Greenstones, because then I kind of have to be playing Blazer because there are so many dual red cards you want to play on turn 2. So overall I don't like her. Although I don't think she's bad. I just think there are better ways to play red-green aggro than anything to do with this card and your Mono Greenstones. Oberon, Lord of the Elves. I don't love him as a 4-drop. He's understated. He makes 3/1/1 elves, which could be really good if you're playing things like Arya already. I don't think he makes his way into Turbo Featsing, though. He's just a little bit too much mana. If he was less stats and less cost and just made 3/1/1 elves, maybe, but he doesn't do that, so he's mediocre at best. Perseal Wildchild. Don't really like this card either, because it does only apply to Wind Magic Stones. I mean, I like it better. I actually don't like this one better than Little Red either. I'm not a huge fan of this card, because unless you're playing this card on turn 1, it's borderline useless. I mean, you could obviously like play it turn 2 before you call your stone, but if you're not getting this out in the first like 2 or 3 turns, it's an awful card. So, pretty bad. This is called Actions reprint. Rapid Growth reprint. Shahrazad. This card's not good because it is mandatory and is not your opponent's Resonator. And even if it was, I'm not convinced it would be great. There's not a whole lot of cards that I want to be giving my opponent to play again. Especially if, like, you think about what's in the meta. Lumia could play a Featsing to get around this effect per se by returning the Resonator to their hand. Wyber has Levitine and Guinevere to sack off whatever you target with this. Stealth doesn't really play Resonators. It's just not that good. And when it comes to like green guys, you know, we're looking nowadays at like, oh, how does it work with Lumia? Because that's a very good green deck. And it really doesn't. This card, not good. I mean, yeah, it's the 6/6 that you want, and it's, you know, Resonance recover this card, but 2 attacks with this guy every turn just because you called a green stone is like, kinda whatever, because he doesn't have swiftness, but I could be wrong on that. It's interesting to see how red-green aggro will develop. I think that there are a lot of red-green aggro cards in Vingolf 3, but I myself have never been one to take aggro decks and tinker with them enough to figure out what's really good, so I could be wrong on a lot of this, but we'll see. This is a reprint. I like this guy a lot. He's a mana dump that just says 1 green mana, give him +2/+2 until end of turn. I think this guy's insane. This is what I want to be playing instead of a little red, because this guy's good at like all stages of the game. Like I could play him like turn 7, and he's just a 3/3, and then you're like unseen pressure, and I'm like, oh, give him +2/+2. Like, just the amount of removal that this guy dodges, I really like this guy. And then when excluded, good reprint, and we're on to black. So next up we get into the darkness portion of the set. First up we have Abdul. Everybody's been talking about this card. They've been very excited for this card as one of the blowout cards of the set, one of the top 5 easily. I think it's going to have a little bit of trouble fitting into a few decks. Obviously it fits pretty well into Fox, but this isn't something that you want to be sacking to make chimeras. It's just Fox is the easiest deck that comes to mind when you say I have a creature that I want to be able to play on turn 2 or 3 that costs 2 black mana. Whereas everything else usually like splashes black, or if they're base black then they're probably playing stealth and don't really want to be playing like a 6/6 2-drop. Sure, it has a nice ability, but it's not very easy to protect if you're playing stealth. Like, it might not actually get... you might not get as much value out of it as you think you would. But I do think it fits pretty well into Fox. It's just a matter of how much of an impact is it going to make. Is it actually going to change up the meta at all? Personally, I'm thinking not. I think this card is a little too easily killable. Even if it was like a 3-drop and had 8/8 stats, I'd definitely be more inclined to say that this is a better card, but I think for a 6/6 2-drop, like, if it was the 5/7, then I'd even be happier, but as a 6/6, it dies to Dark Purge, which they conveniently reprinted in this set to remind you that this dies to Dark Purge. So really the only thing you have to do is if you play a deck that has trouble with Abdul and you can splash 1 black mana, like, just play Dark Purge. And then you'll find a lot of other uses for it too. It's not like Dark Purge is a bad card, but... then we go on to Baleful Avatar. This card, in my opinion, was kind of like a worse Pheasant. I don't know. The fact that it costs 2 black, once again, means it really only fits into Fox. But the thing about Pheasant was that you could make a Chimera that wasn't Manticore in your opponent's draw phase and then still make them discard. So we'll see if this gets played over that. This is the card I was talking about. It's a reprint. Darkness Wizard. Once again, I think all the wizards are bad. There's really no spell that you care that much about ramping into, and it dies to everything in the game. So, and its secondary ability is awful, so I don't see why it would be good. Dracula is interesting that you have a way that isn't a Regalia to give your J-Ruler imperishable. This is kind of important when you look at Lapis Cluster moving forward and realize that we're losing Regalia, and currently all of the ways that we have to give J-Rulers imperishable, as far as I know, I don't think there's anything that isn't a Regalia that does that. So it's possible that this will be extremely impactful, you know, once we lose Death Scythe and things of that nature. But at the moment, I think this card's useless. So it's gonna be like a year before you see this card potentially do anything, and even then, it's highly questionable. Endless Night's a reprint. Galapis the Pure Youth. This card's not good. It just blows up your own field along with your opponents. It costs 6 mana. It's understated. Sure, you get the +1/+1s, but I really don't think this card's gonna be living that long against most decks in the format. This guy didn't get any new support out of Vingolf like I thought he might, so he's still pretty bad in my opinion. Low-key, pretty bad, obviously. It doesn't boost his attack, so everything's irrelevant. Rezard, this card's interesting, but I don't think it's good. Somewhere along the line we might find a way to break this card, but once again it being triple black means it only fits into a handful of decks. Although we are getting more Resonators, especially out of Vingolf 3, that are kind of low-drop, mid-rangey Resonators that cost all black mana, so it's possible we might see Control start to shift away from Stealth in the future. I think these are very good cards to have going forward once Alice Cluster rotates out and we lose Riza and Nelder, but once again, in the meantime, I don't think these are things you're going to see anytime soon. Shriel, I want this card to be good. This card's not good. It's pretty much just, I think every deck that would play this, such as like Fox, potentially Lumia, because actually I'm not sure why Lumia would play this. So yeah, it's pretty much just Fox and Stealth, but even then, just play Dance of Shadows is better. You just do it at the end of your turn, and then you get the guy for your turn, and then you do stuff with it. And, like, you could dance this guy, but then... Like, you could dance this guy, use his effect on your turn, get a Chimera back, and then use him and the Chimera to make another Chimera, but I think I'd rather just have him be a copy of Dance of Shadows so that I could use it twice. Shade. This guy, I originally thought was pretty bad, but then I kind of thought about it, and I decided he's still bad, but he's not as bad as I thought he was, because in Fox, you do get to Resonance Darkness Magic Stone at instant speed for the entirety of the game by recycling your Killing Stones. So he probably won't be useful in that aspect, but it is something that you can do that exists. That's a reprint, that's a reprint, that's a reprint. Onto the dual color cards, we have Alcerius. First off, don't like the 600 defense, mostly based on the fact that I was talking earlier about how if Abdul comes into the meta in a big way, then Dark Purge will come into the meta in a big way, and 600 defense suddenly becomes the sweet spot for things dying. And for a 3-drop, he could have very easily been a 7-8. I also don't like that he will most likely die at instant speed, and therefore you cannot play a normal chant from his ability if he dies at instant speed, at least as far as I can tell. It's possible that you'll be able to play a sorcery speed chant if he dies at instant speed, but that's something I'll have to ask judges when the set actually drops. Blazer, this card's also bad. A 9/9 that just kills a J-Ruler, very specifically a J-Ruler. If yours is the only J-Ruler, you have to kill your J-Ruler when he enters the field because he is mandatory and not opponents. But other than that, just killing the J-Ruler, it's pretty easy to just kill a J-Ruler. The trick is killing it with Imperishable. I mean, without Imperishable. Because, like, if I just play this against Val 2, they're going to tap a Levitine, and I'm suddenly out 4 mana. And he's, like, already mono black, so if you're playing him, you're in Moonbeam color. So he just kind of falls apart on what he wants to be doing. Jeanne d'Arc, this card's awful. Gaining life's irrelevant. And when it dies, you draw a card, but it's a fucking 3-mana 6/6. Just play a fucking Tama. And it's blue-white, like, ew. This guy's interesting. He does hit your 12/12 flyer mark, and he also has first strike, so he'll always kill Quibers if he attacks. And then he gives all your J-Resonators flying in first strike, which I think is good. I think this would be like the new Guild Array, like, top end for red-green aggro. But, like I said, I don't know. I think red-green aggro, looking at the cards that we get from it out of Vingolf, kind of want the game to go longer. Like, they're kind of fine with that. They've got more mid-rangey top-end things like this guy, so I think he's actually going to end up being pretty okay. This guy's awful. It's so bad. This guy's also not good. Mostly because he's very top-end. Like, he costs 6 mana, so you kind of have to already have out a lot of mana to get to him, and then once you have gotten to him, there's not a whole lot else to get to beyond 6 mana. So his ability becomes rather useless. It also doesn't allow you to, and this is just me being really picky here, but you don't have the ability to, like, leave open 1 mana and then play cards like Seal of Wind and Light and Space-Time Anomaly. Which, I mean, you probably shouldn't be able to, but if I'm going to be paying 6 mana for something to double my mana, I mean, there's just not a whole lot. You really can't go up from there. And he's, like, green-black, so he's not, like, Captain Hook colors or anything for me to, like, play a Hook later in the turn. I don't know, I just think he's really mediocre. Especially since there's no good way to, like, cheat him in. You're going to have to actually get to 6 mana and then play him. Yeah, it's just not good. Pandora, I actually kind of like this card. I think the colors are a little awkward, but we'll see more of where that goes in L3. But I do like the random burn on your opponent whenever she attacks. When she blocks is a little irrelevant, but I do like the versatility of it. And I definitely think it's something I would want to play more aggressively. I always like things that are just like randomly making your opponent lose life. So I'm a fan of this card. I don't think it's going to be super impactful in the upcoming Atlanta meta, but it's something to keep your eye on for L3. Snow White, this card's garbage. I don't like this card at all. There's no life manipulation in this game, really, I say, as I get past a card that has a lot of life manipulation. But like, I'd want the 4/4 on 3,000 or less, and then, like, actually, I think I want Swiftness on 3,000 or less, the 4/4 on 2,000 or less, and then the First Strike on 1,000 or less. Like, I don't actually care about First Strike. It's mostly an irrelevant ability. But I think the First Strike definitely has to come after the 4/4. because at that point I can trade with Gwybers. And she has precision already, so like she can just straight attack the Gwyber. I think the first 4 and the 4/4 has to come a lot earlier than 1,000 or less life. Giant Wiseman. I actually like this card. He might be a little bit too much mana to pay, especially for a 6/6, but I do like that you get like a body on top of this, because I'm fine paying like 3 mana for like a cancel target resonator spell at the moment. So getting like a 6/6 for 1 mana on top of that, I think is pretty good. I don't really like that he can be prisoned, but I think he's a nice little something extra. I think he's a very balanced card. Like an extremely balanced card, which could either be very good or very bad. Only time's gonna tell, but at the moment I think he's a good card. Yggdrasil costs way too much mana for a mana dork, even if he's producing 2 wills of any attribute. At 4 mana, it's like, whatever, dude. So then we get into the stones. The way to tell if these are kind of good or bad is you look at the base color. If it's base green or black, then it's good. Base red and white are like your second 2 that you want, and then base blue is easily the worst. You don't want base blue. So there's an exception to this with red, because you want aggro to, if aggro is like your strategy, then you want it to be base red regardless of what the other color is. So like you would want base red over base black or base green. So like this one's good either way because it's base red over base blue. This one is base green over black, doesn't really matter because those are the 2 that you want. It'd be good either way, although I do think base green is a bit better, since you tend to run more green cards even in things like Fox that are just green-black decks. This one's awful because it's base blue over base black. This one's green over white, which is good. Black over red is probably good, as I think you're more... When you put black and red in a deck together, you're usually running control. It's not very often that you see an aggro deck splashing black. This one's a blue-white stone. Why aren't you going to play a blue-white stone? Red over green is arguably fine, as red-green are good aggro colors, and it's usually, yeah, it's probably fine. Blue over green is awful. Black over white is good. White over red is not good. And then the mono stones. These are just pretty. And that's it for Vingolf 3. Feel free to message me with any questions. My name's Aaron Miles on Facebook. And for On Tilt Gaming, that's the end of the video.